Hey guys, how you doing? Ron Raymond here from the Raymond Report with tip number 17 of our 30 tips in 30 days, Dog Days of Summer series. Hope you're having yourself a good start to your day. As always, don't forget, subscribe to our channel by tapping that notification bell in the top right hand corner or hit the subscribe button below this video if you are using a mobile device. Tip 17, my favorite number. In fact, that's the day I was born on, so that's why it's one of my favorite numbers. I don't know if it's my favorite tip. I like the silver bullet tip. That's one of my best ones. Here, tip number 1. A little plug there for the first tip. But welcome to the tip 17. It's called the box score 90-10 rule. What exactly is the 90-10 rule, Ron? Well, we all know each weekend or after a game, there's always going to be the box score, right? And a lot of people, I'm not a huge box score guy. And when I do handicap, if I do look at the box score, it'll be in football. Mostly in football. I will look occasionally in baseball. That's probably the second one, then NBA and hockey the third. But when I do look at the box score in football, I do look at that, the 90-10 rule. And what is the 90-10 rule? I always tell our players when we're coaching football, look, the game of football, the game of baseball, hockey, NBA, anything in sports is 90% mental, 10% physical. And when you're looking at the box scores, what exactly are you looking for? The bookmakers, they have the same box score access that we do. And, when you look at the box score, I would say about 70% of the box scores are probably average, the same average of each week, right? Teams will pass for 250 to 300 yards. Teams will rush for anywhere from 100 to 150 yards. You might get that odd 200 yards, right? But those are out of the ordinary. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. What is out of the ordinary when it comes to looking at the box score, right? And I have a rule. I have a lot of rules, but 90-10. But when I'm looking at the box score, these are the big threes that I'm looking for. I'm not looking for Aaron Rodgers, 300-yard average. I'm not looking for Lamar Jackson's, 150-yard rushing. I'm looking for the three lackeys. And what are the three lackeys? Lack of focus, lack of concentration, and lack of discipline. And I try to find that in the box score, so this way it gives me an edge, because what goes up must come down, and it's very rare you'll see a team make that same mental mistake, turnovers, and penalties at a high volume that they did last game going into the next game. Because let's say, for instance, the New England Patriots, who didn't take a lot of penalties last year, go into the game based on last performance, say they got like 15 to 20 penalties. You think Belichick's going to make a little concentrated effort this week and he'll have postcards all over the place? The penalties this week, we got to really focus on that. That would be the number one thing he talks to his meeting on Monday morning when he talks to his players, right? So mental mistakes, turnovers, and penalties, and the three lackeys. That's what I'm looking for when I'm going in through the box scores, and I'm deciphering all the the one thing with these Raymond reports, I always make a new word to the Oxford Dictionary, right? But anyways, so I'm deciphering the box scores and the numbers, and I'm trying to get you guys some good value and basically tips, which this video is all about, and trying to find what the real angles that you can use towards your handicapping in the next game that you're going to bet on, right? All right, so NFL, college football, what are we looking for? Well, I'm going to look at penalties, because the first thing I want to do is I want to see how many penalties team took last week, right? The average penalties last year was 11.2 and 97.4 yards per game. Now, what am I looking for when I'm looking at penalties? I'm looking for teams that took 3 or less penalties, because that tells me that was a perfect game almost when it comes to penalties. And if they had 10 or more, that means that wasn't a perfect game, and maybe the outcome off the points off turnovers created like 50 or 40 points, 30 points, and what goes up must come down. And the thing is, these coaches, these pros, especially maybe in college football, that will be the emphasis of what to correct next week, and that's the perfect law of average angle right there, right? Turnover, same thing. Where does it fall in the lackey? How come you're fumbling? How come you're making it and throwing an interception? Lack of focus, lack of concentration. Are you not reading your keys? Those are things, right? And fatigue. Does fatigue play a factor in it? So I'm looking for a team that had 0 turnovers last game and a team that had 4 or more, and then I'll make my adjustments depending on what the final score was in that game, right? Law of average. Quarterback performance last game. Again, when you look at these box scores, you're going to see these quarterbacks, they'll almost have all the same type of stats, right? Aaron Rodgers is going to throw for 300 yards. Lamar Jackson is going to, throw for 200 and run for 100. Those are the average. I don't want average, because everybody's average, and the bookmaker has average, and you can't make money off average. You got to look for poor performance and great performance because what goes up must come down, and it's very hard in the NFL or any pros to have your career games, right? Anytime the quarterback has like a career type game or a career low game, you got to find the advantage into the next game. And offensive plays last game. Did a team, run under 50 plays last game? It was the defense always on the field? Did they run over 70 plays last game? Those are things that I'm looking for, and it says a lot about the team's performance when they had less than 50 plays or more than 70 plays, and right there between 50 and 70 plays, that's the average plays that a team will have. So those are things that I'm looking for in NFL, college football. Penalties, turnovers, quarterback performance. Quarterback's huge. The quarterback to me is the field general, and that's the person on the field. The only player that touches the ball more than the quarterback is the center. Because how else is he going to get the quarterback, right? That's what I always tell our players. That's the only person that touches the ball more than the quarterback. But those four categories right there, focus, concentration, discipline, and those are box score things in football, right? NHL, we saw in the Stanley Cup playoffs, penalties, you have poor, why are you taking penalties? Discipline, lack of discipline will cost you. But, sometimes you look at the box score, you get a team like Tampa Bay, have a lot of penalties and still win the Stanley Cup, right? Just things you just you can't explain. But the thing is that they do have really well is special teams. PK and the power play, right? That makes or break your season. Because if you get an average team, and they're average on 5-on-5, the difference will be if they're a playoff team, that means they're a good PK. They have a good PK and a good power play. And if they don't, well, guess what? They're not playing like the outer centers. Centers turn it on too late in the season, and because their penalty kill and power play were not that good. And goalies will make or break your season. And you saw it in the Stanley Cup, right? If you got a hot goalie, it's very rare you see a good goalie have two bad performances in a row. I call it the bounce back factor. And you get a really good goalie like Fleury, Vasilevsky, Price. Even though Price didn't have a great regular season, you saw him bounce back in the series, but the box score will show you that, right? NBA, free throws, right? Concentration. You saw with Giannis, right? Mental concentration. When you're looking at the box score, see how a team did last game, see how they're shooting on the season, and try to get them off performance where they had a really low performance. Again, we don't care about average. We want to have when they had a bad performance and then see what the bounce back's going to be like, which will probably be in your favor. Or if they over, 100%, in 2-3 games, well, that's not going to happen all the time, right? And then you got to use that towards your advantage. And again, the mental game, the 90-10 rule. Offensive, defensive rebounds. To me, that's all about defensive hustle, aggressiveness, and attitude. You can't, those are things you can't really teach, right? You either have it or you don't. You hustle all the time, like a Kawhi Leonard, and it's about attitude. I always say these, when you're on defense, especially in football, it's all attitude, right? Turnovers, same thing. Lack of concentration. The Atlanta Hawks drove me nuts under Lloyd Pierce. When he was at the beginning of the year, I watched a lot of Atlanta Hawk games, and the lack of focus and the mental mistakes they did by inbounding the ball. It's one of my biggest pet peeves in the NBA. When you're just inbounding the ball after a bucket is scored and you create a turnover, how can that happen? That should never happen ever. And those are turnovers that when you read the box scores, see how a team did the last game. And again, don't look for average. Look for poor or high performance on the box scores, and then use it to your advantage. And steals. Steals are a big one too. And these are all things that have the mental game, right? Focus, discipline, and concentration. And for the NBA, MLB, what I'm looking for is walks. First thing I want to see how much the pitcher, how many walks does he have? Any relievers in there? Like right now, Blue Jays reliever Tyler Chatwood, he is struggling to find the strike zone, right? So if I know, but you never know when a reliever is going to go in, right? But you got to be aware, especially if you're doing in-game betting, and you know that, or this is where, like, I'm not a big in-game guy, but now that I'm exposed to it and I'm seeing it, and I'm always have an open mind. I'll never downplay and say, oh no, I'm not that guy. Now I'm looking at the value of these in-game betting, which I'm starting to slowly. But the thing is, anything I do in-game better, and anything that I'm take something new at, I gotta feel confident knowing that I know what I'm doing, right? But that's one thing I'm gonna look at. Walks, for the relievers in in-game betting, because if I know Chatwood's pitching right now, and you're betting per bat, well, guess what? The walks are a huge factor in his game right now because he has lack of confidence, and maybe he goes for reassignment or this a couple of games in the AAA. Just to get his confidence back, right? Hits. Is the team going through a good or bad streak, right? And the one thing with baseball, you can't, of 162 games, you can't be hitting 300, 400 every game, right? You're going to have your stretches where you're not feeling it, right? You're going to see teams go through 3-4 hits a game and just not, and then you're going to see teams have like 10 hits a game, 10 runs a game. So you got to follow those peaks and valleys of those teams when they're going through their hitting streaks. The whip is huge. If you look at the whip of the top 10 teams right now, the Major League Baseball, 9 of the 10 teams have the best whip are teams with playoff record. The only team that's not a playoff team that has a good whip is the Miami Marlins. Figure, well, you got Lopez, you got Rogers. You do have some good pitching in Miami, and it's just, I think Miami's just snake bitten. That's why I always call them the scrappy Miami Marlins, because they're just snake bitten. But the whip, walk, plus his per innings pitch is something I look for, and quality starts. I always look for quality starts for pitchers to see if they're giving you at least 5 innings, right? It's not like it used to be like in the 90s and 2000 when Pedro and Randy Johnson, Clemens were pitching. Man, those guys would give you 7, 8, 9 innings, on a regular basis. And now you're lucky if your starter gives you 5 good innings, right? But again, the science of the game, the rest, it's completely changed today. So that's what I look for when I'm looking at the box score. I'm not looking for averages. I'm not looking for the 300 yards passing. I'm looking for the mental mistakes in the box score, the 90-10 rule, and use that to your advantage when you are handicapping the next game. And again, I think it's big in college and NFL football, NHL, NBA, because it's daily, and MLB, it's very time consuming, right? And when you're doing all these sports, you don't have a lot of time. But there you have it. Gave you a new word today. I don't know if I forget what it was called, deciphering or something like that. But yeah, anyways, hope you guys enjoy these videos. I love doing them for you. And as always, don't forget, post your comments in the comment section. I always love to read the comments, even though we don't have a lot right now, but I think that'll change over time. And hopefully to see you soon here on the Raymond Report. That was tip number 17, 90-10 rule. Cheers.